Last week, I shared some thoughts regarding the spiritual dimension, and we did not get to finish that subject. So I promised that this week I would try to finish the other part of what I had to share, and so that's what we're going to do this morning: the spiritual dimension, part two. I know there are some questions which were left in our minds. There were some issues that were left hanging. And I hope that as we share together this morning, we'll be able to open up those questions. I want to apologize at the start for being a little for clearing my throat a lot. There's a bug that is in the air. It has affected my wife Jen pretty badly. She has been coughing all night for the past couple of nights, having a hard time sleeping, and it has affected me myself because I have this constant irritation in my throat. So it's not anything too serious, but just irritating, and it means I probably will be clearing my throat a lot. Maybe when I get warmed up, it will go away, but I just want to explain so I'm not so self-conscious, if you understand. Anyway, I'm going to go to my Bible, and we will pick up from where we left off last week. And I would like to remind us of some of the things that we looked at. First of all, and let me just add that I am grateful for those of you that I can see, as always. Seeing you makes it easier, makes it better for me. Now, last week we were talking about the fact that there is a dimension that we humans cannot enter for the most part, and yet it is evident that it exists. And I mean the spiritual dimension. What we said was that the physical, there are three dimensions in the physical world that we know of, three dimensions. Sometimes people say there are four or even more. You know, they add some other things, but basically in the physical dimension, there is length and there's width or height, and then there's depth. Three dimensions we talk about all the time. And what we looked at last week was the fact that everything in our dimension can be examined, can be experienced through the five senses. What you can see, hear, touch, smell, and taste. If it doesn't fit into any of those categories, it does not fall into the category of the physical, and it doesn't exist in the three dimensions. One of the things that we pointed out is that there are some things that we sometimes don't consider that they are real things, but they are, and yet they don't exist in our three dimensions. Well, they exist here, but they are not measurable by the senses. For example, one of them was love. One of them is faith. One of them is hope. One of them is thoughts. You know, the video that I put up on YouTube, somebody says he can actually see his thoughts. Somebody made a comment, he can see his thoughts because he's an artist and he visualizes what he's going to do before he draws it. And that's not really seeing your thoughts. That is because if you can see your thoughts, that means that your physical eyes can see them. What you visualize in your brain is a thought, even if your thought takes on shape, but you don't actually see it. It means that your brain creates the image, but you're not actually seeing it with the senses. So anyway, in making this point, what I wanted to point out is that there are certain elements that exist in both that exist in the physical world and in the spiritual world. There are things of the spirit, but they exist in both worlds. So hope, for example, Paul says, now abideth faith, hope, and love. The only reason that these things can abide forever is because they are already a part of the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, you have love. In our physical world, you have love. In the spiritual world, you have hope. Same in the physical world. So there are some things that we can't see, but they exist here. You can't measure them using the measuring tools of this three-dimensional world, but they exist here. So in a sense, we do have spiritual elements here in our physical world. The other thing that I wanted to point out, I want to make an emphasis of it this morning, and this is maybe the main thing I'm going to focus on, is that it is clear that they may cross from the spirit world into the physical world. It can happen. Angels do it all the time, right? They cross from the spirit world into the physical world. You find out God himself, Jesus himself, even in its glorified form, sometimes appears, not very often, but on rare occasions, like when he appeared to Paul, he actually steps into the physical world. So we see that it is possible to step from the spirit world into the physical world, into our three-dimensional world. But from what we can understand, it is not possible for us to step into the spirit world. So what we have is one-way traffic, one-way passage. There is passage from the spirit world into the physical world. But unless, I don't know if it has ever happened, I don't think it happens. You know, Paul tells us that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Sometimes people have had visions. John says he was in the spirit and he was taken up into heaven. So it is possible for us, the spiritual part of us, to step into the spirit world, but physically that's not possible. There's a barrier that makes it impossible for physical things to cross into the spiritual world, so that even at the end of time, when we are going to be taken into that spiritual realm, the Bible says we shall be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. We will not be going into heaven or into the spiritual dimension with these physical bodies, because it is not possible for these bodies to exist there. So before we go, we are going to be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. So I want to make that point very clear. However, having said that, I also want to point out that it is not all the time that spirits can travel from the spirit world into the physical world. Let me show you a couple of places where the Bible points this out. Last week I mentioned the demons that were possessing these two madmen and the Gadarenes demoniacs. And when Jesus asked them in Luke chapter 8, it says in verses 30 and 31, it says, and Jesus asked him, saying, what is thy name? And he said, Legion, because many devils were entered into him. And they besought him that he would not command them to go out into the deep. I've always wondered, what was this deep? Where is the deep? Apparently, it's some place where demons belong. And these demons had somehow been able to find access into our three-dimensional world. And now Jesus was about to cast them out of this man. And they begged Jesus not to send them back into the deep. And of course, you know, Jesus allowed them to go into a herd of swine. And the swine immediately became crazy, ran down into the sea, and all of them drowned, over 1,000 of them. And I suppose the demons ended back up in the deep. So what I'm saying is that it is clear that it is not all spiritual beings who can move into the physical world. There are certain conditions on which some of these spiritual beings are allowed into our world. They're not just allowed to show themselves at any time. And I will explain why in just a moment. But look at this. Look at what Peter says about these demons. In 2 Peter 2 and verse 4, it says, for if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell. The word there is Tartarus, I believe, Tartaru. It doesn't really, it's translated hell, but it really means a place of darkness. It says, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. So Peter kind of gives you the idea that these demons are not permitted to freely roam about. God has confined them. So they're not able to step into our physical realm and move about as they please. God has confined them. And there's a reason behind this. And here's another verse in Matthew 12 and verse 43. One of the things that the Bible does not do is give us a very clear understanding of the spiritual world. It's not very clear, but there are clues here and there. And when we pick up the little bits that we can find, we get some kind of picture. Look at what Jesus says here, speaking about evil spirits. When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places. What is that? What are these dry places? He's seeking rest, and he findeth none. What I understand is that evil spirits cannot remain in our three-dimensional world. God does not allow them unless they have a place of rest. And when it talks about a place of rest, it means a body that they can possess. They need a body to manifest themselves in our three-dimensional world. They need a body. Now, I would like to explain that when a spirit, when we say a spirit steps into the three-dimensional world, into the physical world, what I mean is that the spirit can manifest himself in our world. Now, we know that in this room, in your room right where you are, there's at least one angel. We all know this. The angel can occupy the same space that you occupy. You can move about, move your hands. You can lock the door. You can fill the room with material, and the angel is still there. In other words, things of the spirit do not interact with things of the physical unless God gives that power. Okay, so what I mean is that evil spirits can exist right here, but they can't affect you. They can't step into the physical world and affect you, because that is the nature of the spiritual. Just like I can be in the room. Okay, let me say hate. Hate is a thing of the spirit. Hate is a spiritual element because it cannot be discerned by the five senses. I can be sitting in this room, and you can be sitting in this room, and I can hate you or I can love you, and you don't know. You don't feel it and you don't experience it, because spiritual things are only discerned if they have a physical, let me say, medium through which they can express themselves. So if I love you, you can see it when I begin to be kind to you, when I begin to behave in a certain way, my body expresses that spiritual quality of love. So the spiritual things need a physical medium to manifest themselves in our three-dimensional world. So evil spirits and even angels, they are limited in how they manifest themselves, unless, I'm going to tell you the conditions. I'm going to tell you the conditions in a little while. But I just want to make that point. If this were not true, you would see demons everywhere you go. You think Satan does not want to step into this world and start killing people? You think he would not like to show himself and to compel everybody to worship him? Why doesn't he do it? God has restrained Satan. God has restrained evil spirits so that they are limited in how they can operate. If God did not limit them, then there would have been far greater demonstrations and manifestations of these kinds of things. So, spiritual demonstration, notice I didn't say that spiritual demonstration is not possible. I say it is restrained. And what I mean is there are certain conditions under which it is possible. We're going to look at one or two of these conditions, but by and large, there is a reason why. You know, somebody sent me a WhatsApp message this week in which, you know, she was a little discouraged because she just wishes that God would manifest himself more. Have you ever felt that way? I have felt that way. I have longed sometimes for God to just show himself to me, or for me to see a heavenly angel, or for something dramatic and supernatural to just manifest itself, to lift my spirit and to build my faith. I've longed for this, and I haven't had that experience in any dramatic way that I can recall. And if you ask why, I'm going to explain the reason why, at least what I believe biblically is the reason for this. But I want to make us understand that there is this barrier. And by and large, these are the conditions that are required by the controversy. Let me make that point. Now, what I'm going to try to explain today is a little bit complicated, maybe. I don't like to be complicated, but sometimes you can't help because the ideas are a little complex. So what I want is that I don't want anybody to interrupt me unnecessarily, but if there's some aspect of what I'm saying that you don't get what I'm trying to say, you can ask a question. Please don't do this unnecessarily because I don't want to disturb those who are trying to understand and we break it up with unnecessary questions. But I want to make us understand. Now, why is there this restraint? Why is there this barrier? Why doesn't God reveal himself more? And why doesn't he permit Satan to reveal himself more? This is a thing that is at the background of everything that we believe. I say we because I don't mean every Christian, but I think the people who are in this fellowship. The background to all that we believe is the idea that there is a great conflict taking place in the universe between two great powers. I mean, one is truly great, and the other one thinks it is great. But they are there anyway. It's God and Satan. It's the kingdom of God and it's the kingdom of Satan. And you have to give Satan that credit because he has managed to bring about a condition in the universe that God respects. When I say God respects, somebody making noise, let me mute. When I say God respects, I mean that God takes Satan's claims into account. There is a conflict between two antagonists in the universe. One is God and one is Satan. It's between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of Satan. This is the background to the entire planet and all the good and evil and the confusion and the controversy. This is the background. If you understand this, you have an open door to understanding. If you don't understand this, you are in darkness and you don't have a clue what is happening. You're like a man who is stumbling about in the dark. Now, the second thing I want to point out about this conflict is that it is not a conflict of force. It's not a conflict of strength. All right? Now, that is obvious. I maybe don't even need to say it, but I need to point it out in case you just bypass it or overlook it. As we have said, how long would Satan last against God in a battle of force? How long would Satan last? You often see pictures about the Revelation 12 when it says the great dragon was cast out of heaven. And all the pictures that I see show angels fighting with swords. And of course, the angels in heaven overcome Satan's angels and they throw them out of heaven. That's how people understand this conflict. And it's nonsense because Satan cannot stand up against God by force. When Jesus saw a boy who was demon possessed, Jesus said, "Come out of him." How much force did he exercise? When the two demoniacs of the Gadarenes came to running at Jesus, they begged Jesus not to cast them out. What force did he use? He just used his voice. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. Nothing can stand against God if it's a question of force. And so this makes us know that this great conflict in the universe is not a conflict of force. The weapons are not force. Let us settle that in our minds. What we are dealing with is an information war. It's a conflict of ideas. What Satan has done is present ideas contrary to the ideas of God. What he has tried to do is attack God on the question of wisdom. Now, when it comes to wisdom, you can't see wisdom. You can't see who is wiser. You can see strength and know that nobody can stand against God. So nobody would dare to attack God in this way. But when it comes to wisdom, Satan can present the idea that he has better understanding than God. And if he can appeal to people's ignorance, he can get some to believe this nonsense. So this is the reason why In this conflict, force is not allowed. In the conflict between God and Satan, God does not resort to force, because if he did, first of all, he would be unfair. Secondly, it would leave questions in the minds of the creation, because let us understand, what is the prize in this conflict? What is the prize in this battle? All wars are fought because the parties desire something. If you even think about the war that's taking place between Russia and Ukraine, Russia wants something and Ukraine wants something, and so they're fighting a war over it. Every war has a prize. And in the prize that in the war that is taking place in the universe, the prize is the loyalty of creation. God wants creation to serve him, to worship him, to be loyal to him, because creation has learned that God is a God of love. Satan wants creation to worship him because they believe he knows better than God. The prize is our loyalty. The prize is the worship of the creatures in the universe. Now, granted, we all know that for the most part, Satan has lost the battle in heaven. Heaven is convinced. When Jesus died, they kicked him out of heaven because he had lost the battle for the minds of the angels. But on planet Earth, it's a different story. Down here on planet Earth, man is so gullible, man is so deceivable, that Satan has far greater success on this planet. But we should remember that the goal is still the same. It's an information war. That's the only way you can fight God, through let me say, a misinformation war. Yes, God is fighting through information. That's what the Bible is about. That's what this sermon is about this morning. That's what the preaching of the gospel is about. It's about the information of truth. And Satan is busy with his misinformation. And both these ideologies are in constant conflict on this planet. It's a battle for the minds and the hearts of creation. It's not a battle of spiritual force, but it's a battle of thoughts. It's a battle of concepts and ideas. And so, in Revelation 12 and verse 9, Satan is described as the great dragon was cast out. That old serpent called the devil and Satan. And look at what it says about him. Which deceiveth the whole world. Which deceiveth the whole world. So Satan's ploy, Satan's method in this conflict is to use deception. And I'm simply reinforcing the point that I made already. Satan cannot fight God by force. No created being can do it. But it's obvious. Everybody knows. There is a battle going on. If you don't know that there's a battle going on, what rock did you crawl out from under? Where are you coming from? How is it that you don't know that there's a conflict between good and evil? Or are you simply an unbeliever and an atheist? Once you have some kind of idea of the reality that there is a good God, it's as obvious as the nose on your face that there's a conflict going on. And it's clear that this is not a conflict of force. So it has to be a conflict of ideas. The conflict in this planet and in the universe is a battle of information, as I said. So the prize is our hearts. That's what Satan is fighting for. And that is what God is fighting for. Now, I hope that those points are very clear. So having made that point, let me go on to the next point. There are some rules. Let me refer to these as the rules of engagement. All right, I'm using war terms here because I'm looking at this in the context of a battle, a war. So I'm using war terms, war terminology. What are the rules of engagement? And by this I mean that when you're fighting a war, when there's any kind of conflict, there are certain things that are not permitted. When I was a boy, I guess this was old school. But you know, as little boys, sometimes you get into a little fight at school. And my father was very chivalrous. I guess he was of the old time. I remember he always said, you don't hit somebody when he's down, right? Don't hit him when he's down. And I know they have another one that says, don't hit a person with glasses. And don't hit a woman My goodness, how the world has changed. I remember the first time I kind of got a little shaken out of my composure. My brother, the one that died, he got into a fight at school with a boy. And he had the boy down on the ground and he was punching him. And I was thinking to myself, "Oh, that's not right. That's not right." I had those ideas in me. So anyway, that has changed today. Today, it doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man, you hit her just the same. It doesn't matter whether it's down. It doesn't matter whether it is from behind. Those old rules are gone. But anyway, this is what I refer to when I say the rules of engagement. Even in the war between Russia and Ukraine, everybody abhors the war and they speak against it. But at the same time, both of those nations, there are certain rules that they know. Even in war, it is not permitted. One of the things, if they start using weapons of chemical warfare or germ warfare, they understand that this is not acceptable, even in war. So this is what I mean when I say the rules of engagement. There are certain rules of engagement in the battle between God and Satan. And of course, Satan is a liar and a cheat, and he would break the rules, except that God limits him. God does not allow Satan to break the rules, because if God did, there would be no hope for us. So God is operating on principles of fair play, and he compels Satan to operate on the same basis. So the rules that God places on himself, the limits that God places on himself, Satan is limited in the same way. One of those rules is that you must fair freedom of choice must always be in place. This is the one great untouchable reality. Everybody must be free to choose. Satan is not free to compel you to worship him. He's not free to compel you to serve him. He can deceive, he can lie, he can cajole and plead with you, but he cannot compel. So when you understand this principle, you can see that God preserves that fundamental element of freedom. This is the foundational principle of the universe, freedom to choose. There can be no force or no coercion. Even when Satan came to accuse Job, when he went up into heaven to accuse Job, God said, "Have you seen my servant Job? That there's nobody like him. Even though you have deceived the whole world, Job is still faithful to me." And Satan tried to say, "Do you know why Job is serving you? It's because you are using unfair means. It's because you are blessing Job unduly while Job is serving you." What was he saying? He was making the point that Job was serving God and he was not completely free because God was using unfair methods to influence him. It's like, let me use a perverse illustration, okay? Mother and father are fighting for custody of a child, and the father has a lot of money, or the mother has a lot of money. And what he does, he keeps buying expensive toys for the child, and he takes him out to nice places when the mother is not able to do it. What he's trying to do, he's waiting for the day when they go before the court, and the child will say to the judge, "I want to live with my father." He's using unfair means. You know, in the world, they have a saying that all is fair in love and war, but you would consider this is unethical. It's unfair means to try to bias the child one way because you have an advantage. God does not work this way. There is a conflict going on, and there is the universe is to make a judgment, and the judgment has to be fair. So free will must be preserved. Fairness of choice. There is to be no force, and that is why there is freedom of information on both sides. God doesn't destroy the books of Satanism. God doesn't destroy the books of atheism. God doesn't destroy the evolutionary books. Although Satan tries to destroy the Bible. He tries to destroy religious literature. He tries to destroy religious truth. God doesn't operate the same way. When I was in college, I belonged to a group of young, we were Adventists at the time, but we put up signs all over the place, telling people of the need to keep the Sabbath, and telling them of the need to keep the commandments and about the mark of the beast. We turned that place upside down. But we put up our banners and we put up our signs. And one day, one witty student, we weren't very popular with the students because of it, but one of the students, he put up a sign on the notice board about the Sadventists. And he talked about the Sadventists and how they went around with these long faces. And it was kind of funny because he talked about, they always complained about the food. And he said the Sadventists were always talking about the beast. And he said one day they were in the dining room and somebody was complaining about the food. And then they realized, brethren, I found out the answer. We are eating the beast. To me, it was kind of funny. And when I read it, I was amused. But one of our sisters came, and when she saw it, she was so upset. She ripped the thing from the notice board, crushed it up and threw it in the garbage. And I said to her, how can you do this? We put up our banners, we put up our posters everywhere. And we are disturbed if they rip them down. Why would you rip down something that is poking fun at us? And I tried to point out to her that this is not of the method of Christ. Satan destroys the things of his enemies, but the Christian allows freedom of information because people need to be free to make up their mind without force. If you are going to compel people to think like you or to not criticize you, you're operating on the principles of Satan. Now, this is why I'm coming to the primary question. This is why we don't see God manifesting himself in the physical world more often. You don't see demons, you don't see angels. You don't see Satan, you don't see God. Why? Because physical display takes away your power to choose with an unbiased mind. If you saw, now there are certain situations, okay? Jesus appeared to Paul. Jesus appeared to Paul. I'm not denying this. This is once in the history of the last 2,000 years. This is an extremely unusual, extraordinary event. And if you examine it, you can see some deep reasons behind it. But that is not normally how God operates. Because if God operates in this way, then Satan has the right to operate in this way. So, display from the spiritual world, the display from the spiritual world, in a way, it removes your power of choice. Because look, if you hate God and you mock religion, the man holds up his hand to heaven and he says, God, if you exist, send a bolt of lightning this moment. Bang, there's a bolt of lightning. You have cut that man's power to choose by at least 50%. Now he's not free to choose anymore because now there is some supernatural force being applied to him. Now he's not dependent upon his honesty and examination of evidence. Now something has happened to move him beyond the normal, and it is something supernatural. So now he's thinking, even if I don't like God, I have to watch myself. Next thing I'm going to be struck by a bolt of lightning. It's like the people at Mount Sinai. At Mount Sinai, did they love God? No. Did they trust God? No. But you know what they said? All that the Lord has spoken, we will do. All that the Lord has said, we will do. Why did they say this? Not because they loved him, not because they trusted him. In fact, they were scared to death of him, but they did it because they were afraid. They did it because the display of power, the lightning and the thunder and the smoke, it left them with no option but to say, yes, 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 we will obey. They fell on their knees and they said, we will obey, not because they loved God, not because they thought his way was better, but because of the supernatural display. It's kind of like what Satan accused God of with Job. He says, Job is only serving you because he recognizes that you are treating him in an unusual way. These people would only serve God because they were aware that God's power was greater than what they could resist. The Old Testament, as I said, was built on certain principles, and we don't have the time to think about it today or to discuss it. But this is not the way that God operates in the New Covenant, not at all. And it is not based on God's eternal way of operating, not at all. Someday we will look at all the reasons why God operated like this in the Old Testament, but it's not God's ideal way of operation. And what we are talking about now is God's ideal way. So God does not, the supernatural world does not step into the physical world. It does not step into our dimension because it induces us to worship God for the wrong reasons. And we are going to see that in the future, when Satan is allowed to display himself in this world, people are going to worship Satan, not from the right motives, but because of fear or because of seeking for power. And they realize that there is power here. So you don't have true freedom of choice when the power of the supernatural world steps into the physical world. You see what I'm saying? The conflict is between ideas, it's between ideologies, and the display of power takes away that element. I hope what I'm saying is understandable. So people choose because they see greater strength. People choose because they are scared, not because they are unbiased in seeing that one side is better than the other. And you can tell it is so in the world today, all right? If you look at what is happening in the world today, you can see that basically this is what is running the world. People are following where they see that there's greater benefit or where there's greater power. It's not so much a question of right and wrong. If you even look at the gangs and the way they operate, the world the cities are filled with gangs. And don't tell me that the people in these gangs believe it is right to murder people in cold blood and to sell drugs to people and to manipulate and to extort. No, but they simply go where there's a greater power. They follow where there's greater power. They worship at the feet of the one that best pleases their desire for power. Even in politics, you know, the people like to believe that I am choosing a political party, even in America, which is kind of like very public in the eyes of the world. They think I'm choosing Republican or I'm choosing Democrat because I look at the options before me, and this one appears to be better where I am concerned. But ultimately, you know what people do? They choose a side that suits their desires. If I would like to see this progress, I'm choosing this side. If I'd like to see this progress, I'm choosing this side. And they choose a side that can best fulfill their ideals. So, this is why the God who is fair, the foundation of God's government is justice and fair play. This is why God does not allow even his own angels to reveal themselves to people. I have prayed and I've asked God for a vision. I've prayed and I've asked God to help me to see something. And God, in his wisdom, knows what is better for David. I believe in God. I don't believe any less because I have not seen these things. But for my own good, I believe our Father has not permitted this request to be fulfilled. And for those of us who are wondering, why don't we see more of the power of God? Why don't we see more of the display of God's power? This is the reason. God is above all things, just and fair. And one thing that God has that I don't think we properly understand is the quality of patience. You can't wear God down. You can't get God to the place where he's so impatient he moves rashly, or he moves from impulse, or he does something that is wrong because he can't wait any longer. You can't get God to do that. It may take 1,000 years and he's not budging from his principles, because God is God. And you might be crying and saying, how long, Lord? I would love to see this happen. How long shall the wicked prosper? How long shall it be that your people suffer in this world? God is not going to budge from his principles, because they are right principles, and they are the principles that will guarantee the eternal security of the universe. So God is not budging from those principles. And that is one of the things that, you know, as much as it might, I might wish it to be different sometimes. Yet in the moments when I think rationally, I am grateful for it. You know, my family, in my family, between my brothers and sisters, I mean, different people run their families in different ways. One of the things that when my children were growing up, we kept them pretty sheltered. Okay, now they have grown up, they do their own thing, but we kept them very much sheltered. I don't think I can remember my children ever spending a night away from home. You know, in other families, the children would go out and spend weekends and spend holidays with relatives and so forth. And they went to school. Well, my children, for the most part, they never went to school. For a period of, I think, 2 years, I went back to teaching for 2 years, and then my two boys, they went to school, the school where I was for those 2 years. But for the most part, they were homeschooled. And so, you know, my family was regarded as being very strict and very tight in the way we control children. Some of the members of some of the other families they were wild and kind of uncontrollable. And one of the things I noticed that was a little strange, there was one child in particular, as a matter of fact, it was about 3 of them that I had the same experience with. And more than one of them became unhappy in their homes and wanted to come and live with Uncle David. And you know, if they came to spend a day, they were perfectly controllable and perfectly happy. And yet otherwise they seemed to be so uncontrollable. And I learned something. I learned that secretly inside of the heart of everybody, they know what is best for them secretly. They are aware that an environment of discipline, somebody who is disciplined and somebody who is careful in the way he does things, he might be more strict, but you are safer with that person. And what I'm saying by this is that God may not answer in the way we want him to answer. We may not always see why he does not do something, but when we understand that he's a person we can trust, he has discipline and he has principles, but he never changes, then you know, this is the kind of person I want running my life. I can depend on this person. I can know that it is my life is stable. I can know that when he makes a decision, it is for my good, even though it goes along with certain limitations on my behavior. And those who come to know God, you come to recognize this. If God says, I won't grant you this now, you know it is for my good, because God always, no matter how long he waits, no matter how many times he says no, it is for your good. You learn this about God. So God has established these principles of operation. And even if you weep, he's not going to change his principles, because they are the best kind of principles. So I'm saying all of this to say that one of the burdens that people have on their hearts is, why don't I see God stepping more often into the physical world? Why is it that I pray for a miracle and I don't always see a miracle the way I expect a miracle? Why? Because God is operating on the principles that we must choose him because we understand he's the best, not because we see display. You see what I'm saying? Not because we see display. I know that some of what I'm saying today may be contradictory to something that I said in the past. I know this, okay? And I am aware of this, and I apologize for this. But the thing is that the more I understand, then sometimes it means that I need to adjust what I'm saying to make allowance for what else I'm learning. Now, I know that some people are asking, what about the Old Covenant? And the Old Covenant is a different story that we need to look at in isolation or by itself at another time. I can't look at it at this moment. But one thing we can understand, everybody understands that in the Old Covenant, God operated on principles that are not eternal. He put his people under the law. For one thing, the Old Covenant is a system of types and illustrations. And I'll tell you this. I'm going to say something that sounds a bit outrageous, but when we come to this topic at some other time, I will justify what I said. Under the Old Covenant, God operated on the principles of the world, not on eternal principles, not on spiritual principles. God operated on the principles of the world under the Old Covenant. God set up a physical kingdom in a physical place. God made a physical people, his special people. All other nations were, to all intents and purposes, outside of the favor of God. Under the Old Covenant, what God was doing at that time, we have to understand, but it was not the principles of the eternal kingdom. So we can't look at what happened then and try to use it to judge the eternal principles on which God operates. That's all I'm going to say about the Old Covenant at the moment. Now, on the other side of this barrier, there's this barrier between our three dimensions and the spiritual dimension. And as I said, it is only under certain conditions that there is interaction between both dimensions, or these four dimensions, if I may say that then. So, what is on the other side of this dimensional barrier? Well, there are the answers to prayer. There are miracles. There are spiritual manifestations. These things happen. We're able to see these things in the physical world. A miracle is the spiritual power stepping into the physical world. When our prayers are answered, it's the spiritual blessings stepping into the physical realm. These happen. But as I said, there are certain conditions. These exist on the other side of this dimensional barrier. And our challenge as God's people is the question of how do we obtain these blessings that are on the other side of this barrier? So the question is, how can we override the barrier? There needs to be a key to open this spiritual door. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to remind us, not show you, everybody knows this. In Mark 9 and verse 23, look at what Jesus said. Jesus said unto him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. When he says all things are possible, he means all things are possible in terms of what you need, in terms of a miracle. All things are possible if thou to him that believeth. If you look at Matthew 17 and verse 20, look at what it says. When the disciples could not cast out the devil out of the boy, they came to Jesus and they said, why could not we cast him out? And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief. For verily or truly, I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall be removed. And nothing shall be impossible unto you. Jesus said that it doesn't matter whether it is something in the spiritual realm or the physical realm. If you have faith, you can break the barrier between the physical and the spiritual world, and nothing is impossible. Anything that you need out of the spiritual realm, you can obtain it if you have faith. I'll explain why. But let me just read one other verse that has relevance here. Hebrews 6 and verse 5. Look at this. Paul talks about the experience of Christians, and I would say especially the early Christians. It says they are the people who were once enlightened. They had tasted of the heavenly gift. They were made partakers of the Holy Ghost. And look at what he says next. They tasted the good word of God and the powers of the world to come. What is this world to come? It's the fourth dimension. It's a spirit dimension. The world to come is the spirit dimension. It's the world where angels exist. It's the world where God exists. It's a world where spiritual beings exist. This is the world to come. For us, it is the world to come. It has not yet arrived. But Paul says that under certain conditions, we are able to experience these powers, these abilities of the world to come. There is a way to break through the spiritual barrier. That's what I'm saying. There is a way to experience the benefits of the spirit dimension today in our three-dimensional world, according to what we are seeing in the Bible. And the Bible says that this key is faith. All things are possible to him that believeth. Now let me explain why. Let me explain how faith works. Faith is the key to the portal. It's the key to the doorway. But how does faith work? Let me explain. Remember the whole problem. Remember that in the universe, what is the question? The question is, which side do you choose? The question is, who will you worship? Remember the prize that the two kingdoms are battling for. The prize is the hearts of men. The prize is your loyalty and my loyalty, your worship and my worship. That is the prize. And the rules are that people must not be made to choose by force. But what happens when you have made your choice freely, without force, without coercion, without compulsion? What happens when you look at both sides and you see that this side is far better? This side is where I place my vote. Let me put it that way. I vote for this side. What is that? That is a statement of faith. That is what faith is. Faith is a vote for the right side. Because look, when we talk about faith, sometimes we misunderstand faith. What is faith really? We think faith is an element that moves spiritual entities, moves in the spiritual world and brings blessings. No, let me tell you what faith is in essence. Do you know what faith is? Faith is simply trusting God. I like to say trust instead of faith, because that's the bottom line of faith. Faith is really trusting God. Faith is saying, I vote for you. Faith is saying, I have found that you are best and your way is the best. I vote for you. Faith is my vote for God. That is why when I have faith, the first thing I do, I go and get baptized. I say to the world and to Satan, I chose my side. I voted for God. So when you think of faith as a vote for God, you can understand why Paul says in Hebrews 11 verse 1, verse 6, without faith it is impossible to please God. Absolutely. Because without faith, you're actually saying to God, I don't trust you. How can God be happy with that? He that cometh to God must believe that he is. That's point number one. And number two, that he is a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. Faith is saying to God, I trust you. I know that serving you is the best thing. I know that you care for those who give themselves to you. I trust you. That's what faith is. Now, when you have determined that you trust God, remember, your decision is not based on the fact that you saw a sign in the sky. Your decision is not based on the fact that God has filled your life with fatness. Your decision is not based on the fact that everything that you want, God drops it in your lap. It's not based on the fact that God has shown you a supernatural display. Your faith is based on the fact that you have looked at the principles of God and you love and you admire and you want this person. Force is not a part of your decision. You see what I'm saying? Faith is a vote for God without force. The same thing happens on the other side. People have faith in Satan or in Satan's way. Okay, it's self-centered, it's selfish, it's focused on benefit for yourself, but people have faith in Satan's way. They think if I follow Satan's way, I'm going to be happier, I'm going to get more pleasure. They want Satan's way, and so they choose that way, even though to some extent they are deceived, but it is not display. It is not undue display that makes them make their choice. So faith is really the key element that enables people to step into the spiritual realm, because remember, faith is a spiritual quality. It exists, it can cross the barrier. Faith can cross the barrier between the physical and the spiritual world. Your body can't cross, but faith can cross, because faith is a spiritual thing. That is why the prayer of faith ascends to God instantly. It's not the sound that you make that God hears, because you can even pray in your mind and the thoughts go to God, because thoughts are spiritual things. So faith makes you take a position in the controversy. It's a vote for God or for Satan. Now that you have made your vote, now that you have chosen, what does faith do? Faith produces obedience to God. Faith produces loyalty to God. And on this basis now, on this basis, God can bring supernatural elements into your life, because these elements are not what make you choose. You chose beforehand. You see what I'm saying? God will not use these supernatural elements to affect your choice. God will bring them in as the fruit of your choice, because now that you have chosen, now it doesn't matter how many miracles God puts in your life. It doesn't matter, because now you have signed the deal. You have already cast your vote, and you're already in this kingdom. So now the miracles that come into your life are not to compel you. So you now have access to the spirit realm, because you have already cast your vote. And it works both ways. This is what I'm trying to say. Don't you know that the people who become fully committed to Satanism, they begin to see supernatural things? They begin to see, you get into a seance. People who I understand that people who go to seances, right? They go to talk to the dead. They see things that they wouldn't normally see. They see the board lifting off the table. People who play with Ouija boards, you see the thing spelling out answers and giving you answers to things that you never imagined were possible. When you begin to believe in the dark side, when you begin to believe in the ways of Satan, Satan has the power now to step into your realm, because you have opened the door through your faith in Satan's kingdom. This is why you find that in the time of Jesus, so many people were demon possessed. People were opening the door to Satan. Maybe it is happening today as well. But you open the door to Satan, he finds a way to step into the physical world. He cannot enter the physical world in his own form. God does not allow it. But he can use the channel of your faith in him, your vote for his kingdom. It becomes a portal through which he can step into the physical world, step in through inhabiting a person's body. And the same thing happens on the spiritual side. So what I'm saying is that when we have chosen, when we have exercised faith in God, it shows in our lives. And the more it shows, the greater our capacity for seeing God's power. The more we demonstrate our faith in God. This is why Jesus said something. Let me look at what Jesus says in John 14 and verse 21. Look at what he says. He that hath my commandments and keepeth them, he it is that loveth me. And he that loveth me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him and will manifest myself to him. What does Jesus mean when he says, I will manifest myself to him? He means I'm going to reveal myself in your life. You're going to see miracles. You're going to see evidence of my presence in your life. Your life will be different from the life of other people. You're going to see things in your life which makes it clear that I am with you. You're going to see answers to prayers. I will show myself to you, because now you have opened the door to the spiritual realm. How did you do it? Jesus says, he that hath my commandments and keepeth them. So of course he doesn't mean simply 10 statements. What he means is that you respond to him. You're in communication with him. You're responding to whatever he says. Whatever he tells you to do, you do it. Let me find a verse here that I want to bring in Galatians 5 and verse 6. Look at this. Galatians 5 and verse 6. Let me put it in the right panel. It says, for in Christ Jesus neither circumcision nor uncircumcision means anything. Well, look what it says. But faith working through love. Look at what Jesus says in the left panel. The one who keeps my commandments is the one that loves me. How does love work? Love works in collaboration with faith. Faith and love are your statement of which kingdom you belong to. When you have held up your banner and you have made your statement, faith working by love, there's no longer any need of proof where you stand. Your faith working through love, or love working through faith, demonstrates to the universe, I have cast my vote, I have made my decision, I have chosen my side. Now, God does not need to restrain showing you himself and showing you miracles. Now he can manifest himself to you, because this manifestation is not the thing that makes you make up your mind. You have made up your mind already. Now somebody will say, well, I'm a Christian and I have not seen that kind of power in my life. What is the problem? I'm going to come back to this. The fact that you say you're a Christian, the fact that I say I'm a Christian, does not mean that I have true faith. Okay? It doesn't mean that I have true faith. I believe, because the Bible emphasizes it, that faith is the key element. We could talk till the cows come home. I believe the word of God more than I believe me. I believe that the whole limitation is this lack of complete trust in God. And how do we know that we don't have this complete trust in God? We know because we don't have this complete obedience. We don't have this complete conformity to the Lord. We are Christians to a certain degree. We have faith to a certain degree, but that 100% commitment, that is completely, totally giving ourselves over to God, is not quite there. And this is what forms a barrier that we still find it difficult to step across to obtain the benefits of the spiritual world. I think this is where I've just about come to the end of what I want to say this morning. And I understand that there are still some questions that people have, and there are still things that people want to ask. But I'm cognizant of the time, and we probably will have to say, if there are any questions that require more than a quick comment, we might have to deal with it this afternoon. But I hope as we have listened this morning, you can at least conclude that what I have tried to share is worth considering. Because I believe when you look at the word of God, this is what the Bible says. If we can believe, anything is possible. And until we believe, we will not see the glory of God. Until we believe, we will not see the glory of God. And yet if we believe, we can step through that invisible barrier into the spiritual world, and we can obtain every blessing, whether supernatural or material, that God has promised. So may God help us that all of us might take these things to heart and seek for that greater faith, that greater trust in the Lord, that will open for us the doors to glory.
Have the crowds round you gathered in the midst of a storm? Is your ship tossed and battered? Are you weary and worn? Don't lose hope, someone's praying for you this very day. And peace be still, he's already on the way. Someone is praying for you. Someone is praying for you. So when it seems you're all alone and your heart will break in two, remember someone is praying for you. Someone is praying for you. Someone is praying So when it seems you're all alone and your heart will break in two, remember someone is praying for you. When it seems that you prayed till your strength is all gone, and your tears fall like raindrops all the day long. He cares and he knows just how much you can bear. He'll speak your name to someone in turn. Someone is praying for you. Someone is praying for you. So when it seems you're all alone and your heart will break in two, remember someone is praying for you. Someone is praying for you. Someone is praying for you. So when it seems you're all alone and your heart will break in two, remember someone is praying for you. Remember